Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight is episode 60, where we are discussing Where the Deer and the Antelope Play by Nick Offerman. Joining me tonight is Chris, and Jen's back.
Hi! Jen's back!
Woo!
For this episode.
For this episode, that's right.
I tried to be on the last one, but life happened and I didn't get to read Harry Potter. So.
That's okay. I'll get you there.
I know. One
day. You're gonna end up there and be like, "Hey, I'm coming for a visit." Like, yeah. So it's just us. We're just reading. That's all that's happening.
Fascinating before this started because I was watching the new Fantastic Beasts because it just got released on streaming, and I had a bunch of stuff to do, and I kept up to last minute.
Nice.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this book. This was Jen's pick in our reading round robin, as we're kind of referring to it now. Jen, why did you pick this book?
Well, we read a book by Nick Offerman last year. I may have picked that one too. I don't know. But it was Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally's, romance story, origin story, if you will. And I thought it was funny. I like Nick Offerman as an actor, and I've seen his stand-up before. So, I like him as an entertainer. And I like what he stands for when it comes to, like, nature and the conservation and stuff. So the book sounded interesting. It was his newest release. I have a couple of his other books that I haven't read, but I listened to this one on audio because he narrates it. And it just sounded cool. It sounded up my alley because from the description, it kind of sounded like a treatise on public lands and conservation and just, his thoughts and musings on these things and experiences. So I just, I'm the environmentalist, one of the environmentalists in the group. And I was like, well, this is semi-entertaining. And I thought the group would like it because it's Nick Offerman and,
right.
He's generally well received by people.
Yes. No, he's a funny dude, and he is definitely well liked. So,
yeah.
Chris, do you want to give your brief? Well, you know what? Let me go back to Jen real quick. So, your brief rundown. What did you, in general, think of the book?
Okay, so I liked it, and it wasn't exactly what I expected, and I know you guys feel the same based on snippets of conversation we've had. But I liked it for what it was, and I liked the things he had to say. He did get political at times, but I, as you know, agree with most of the things that he talked about, and I am typically of the notion that we need more people to speak up on these issues, and especially people in his position of privilege, middle-aged white male, doing pretty good for himself, making money. He's got a public platform, so I like it when people use their platform to speak out on important issues like he did. And I, overall thought it was good. I did think there were times where he jumped around and it was hard to follow, kind of, okay, how did we get to this from where you were, or like first we're in the woods, the next thing you know, he's on a rant about some random, very specific issue. That was a little hard to follow at times. So I totally get why that would be frustrating. But overall, I thought the message was good. And he was trying to kind of promote an appreciation for nature and our country, the United States, from the perspective of like, let's kind of go back to our roots in terms of conservation, but without the whole like genocide and racism and stuff like that. The problematic parts, he was very explicit about those things. And I appreciate that because that's often glossed over and just ignored. So,
sorry about, okay, Chris, so what were your initial thoughts?
I really like Nick Offerman. I am a big fan of Parks and Rec. In fact, I'm watching it again. So I really like him, and I was looking forward to this. I want to read more nonfiction, and I was like, all right, let's just see what happens. And I listened to it on Audible, and I do enjoy his voice. It's very pleasing. What I found hard is that he's very wordy. He's very wordy, and I think you kind of, unfortunately, he is a very intelligent man. Unfortunately, what I found is that a lot of what he was saying was getting lost in the very big words he was using. Like he overcomplicated it a little bit for me. I don't know what that says about me, but other than that, I did feel like it did jump around a lot though, but I didn't know what this book was about. I had no expectations. I figured it was about being environmentally minded and a little bit, conscious of things like that. I do enjoy his stances on farming. I loved the stories of him going to that farm in Scotland.
Northern England, yeah.
Northern England, thank you. And just how, you see this dude, basically, I can't get the Ron Swanson out of my head. So you're seeing Ron Swanson in the sleet and cold and just miserable weather, and he probably has a shit-eating grin on his face, like he's just like, yes.
Mhm.
Just the way he talked about it was really cute, and you can tell that he really loved the way he grew up and how he appreciated how it kind of like influenced the way he sees the world now, and that he does really understand and is very aware of his privilege and very aware of him and his wife's station in life and all that kind of stuff. I do appreciate that he's not under any delusions of who he is as a person. Very dry, very, very dry sense of humor. Sometimes I had to listen to him and be like, oh yeah, he's being sarcastic. That's right. But I thought, I don't know, I didn't think it was just a little bit wordy sometimes, overcomplicating the sentences of what he was trying to get across. But I mean, I'll listen to the man read a phone book. So
yeah,
I was in.
He's got a great voice.
He does have a wonderful voice. Yes.
He does.
Okay, so Sean did read the book. He was going to join us tonight, but unfortunately, the whole migraine got him. So, hopefully, he gets feeling better here. So, if he's listening, get better, dude. I will kind of be his voice as well. We had a couple of conversations. It sounds like he had very similar thoughts to me. I'll just say it. I did not like this book.
Haters.
No. Now let me explain this. This is why this is going to be weird. I like Nick Offerman. I think he's an awesome dude. I like you said, I've enjoyed his characters that he's played or whatever. I do find his sense of humor funny. Like I get it whenever he's being sarcastic. I'm like, that's very funny. He's got a fantastic voice. We've said that before. I think the first thing that we read/listened to was the bedtime stories for cynics. And I was just like, if dude ever wants to quit acting, like he could just read audiobooks and be perfectly fine. Because he does have a fantastic voice. His writing is definitely, you're right, it tends to be wordy. He does like to use very intellectual words when he's writing, which, I don't have a problem with that. I was expecting this to be talking about conservation and environmentalism, which, like I said, that's what I was walking into, and that's what I got, and I was just like, cool. I agree with this is where it's going to get funny. I like the dude. I agree with the things that he's saying. Like his viewpoint. I agree with his viewpoints. I agree with even his political viewpoints. That being said, though, it just came across preachy for some reason, and when I was listening to it, there were just parts I'm just kind of like a little bit like what you said, Chris. It's like, how did we get here? Like, he goes on these rants about Trump. I hate Trump. Like, I will flat out say it. We try not to get too political on this show, but I am not a Trump supporter in the slightest. But that being said, I'm like, we get it. Let's go back to the story. It's like you're kind of beating a dead horse here. And in some cases, it was like he was telling a story that was interesting, and we just slammed on the brakes and just exited the highway as fast as we could. And it's just like, whoa, where are we going? Where what happened here? And I think, now granted, Sean's definitely not, an environmental person, but so he may not have even enjoyed that part. But we talked a little bit. We're both like, man, like he just kept beating that dead horse, and it's just like, all right, can we get back to the other stuff? Like, so, like I said, I did not care for the book, which is funny because, like I said, it's not like I don't like the dude. It's not like I don't like his voice. It's not like that I don't actually agree with all of his viewpoints. Like, that's the funny thing. It just, to me, it came across preachy, but whatever. So let's get into the book itself. It is called Where the Deer and the Antelope Play. I think the full title is something like Viewpoints from Someone Who Likes to Walk in the Woods or something like that. And it does start off, he's talking about, this book came out literally last year. So it was funny because when I was listening to it and he was bringing up stuff, I'm like, ooh, whoa, that just seemed like that happened. So he was making references to some stuff that is very, very recent. Which is fine. I'm just like, okay, this has got to be his newest book, because I hadn't seen if this was his newest or if this was an older one or whatever. So, um, but a lot of it is affected by COVID, and he talks about how during COVID, him and his wife, were like, hey, why don't we do the RV thing and let's go RVing across the U.S. because we can do that and be safe. And he talks about several of the different parks that he goes to. At one point, he does discuss going, like you said, to Northern England and visiting this person that he's been following on Instagram, I think is what he said. Yes.
Can I just throw this out there that I actually interviewed that guy on Sustainably Geeky a year ago, James Rebanks. He wrote Pastoral Song, or English Pastoral is what it's called over there. And yeah, like I got to talk to the guy. He was really cool. And when I saw that was part of the reason I was excited to read the book, I was like, he knows James, and I talked to James. Not that the guy would remember me out of anybody, but I kind of like had a frame of reference for everything he was talking about. And when he like went into detail about the Galloway cows, and I got to see Galloway cows in Ireland and like realized that's what he raises over there. So that part was really cool for me because
that is fantastic.
Yeah, like I was like, hey, I kind of know that guy, and like everything he's talking about is exactly what his book is about. Like James's book, it's about sustainable agriculture, renewable, and how he's like transitioning his farm to more pastoral. So that was kind of cool for me. But yeah, if anybody wants to hear more from James, check out, I think it was like July of 2021 or August, Sustainably Geeky. So
very cool. Wait a minute. You said July 2021?
It was July or August, because I remember reading it last summer. Yeah, the summer before I moved. So
he couldn't have been visiting him more than about 6 months ahead of that then.
Maybe. I mean, no, I think he's known him for years, but his book came out last year, and then I read it last July, and
Well, even some of the events that he was talking about, maybe we'll see. And here's one of those things: is because he kind of weaves back and forth. I just assumed that he went and visited him during COVID and everything that was going on. So maybe that wasn't the case.
No, he went in 2019 before.
Okay, so it would have been beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was really cool how they just became friends over Instagram and like, hey, you want to come visit the farm? And then he immediately just shows up and gets put to work, and he loves it.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, pass the stones, and he's just like building a wall and helping guide the sheep around, like he's lived there his whole life. And like you said, he has a shit-eating grin the whole time.
Yes. So but yeah, so it's all these different stories. It's him talking about this. He does reference some of his growing up and how he grew up, and he does go back and cross reference because if we listen to the other book that him and his wife wrote about how they got together, and he does talk a little bit about him starting out as an actor and everything else. But yeah, it's he is definitely coming at it from that from an aspect of what we need to do, what do we need to do, and what we need to be doing to protect these national parks, these really awesome parks that he's getting to go around and stuff. I thought it was hilarious, that one part where he's talking about, crap, was it Big Bend National Park? And he's like, it's a total shithole. No one should go there. Because he's like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he didn't want anybody to go and ruin it.
No one needs to go there. Everyone just stay away from it.
Yeah. I read that because we started talking about it, because I was like, when you listen, you do other things, right? So then I had to stop myself. I'm like, oh, he's being funny. Because he's just so dry.
Yeah, because it's literally, it's an absolute shithole. No one should go there with the beautiful scenery and the wonderful bridges and the charming parks. And you're just like, wait, what?
It's all garbage.
Yeah, it's garbage. It's all horrible.
Yeah, stay away.
Yeah, but yeah. So what were some of the things that y'all read that y'all enjoyed? Anything that stuck out in particular?
I liked the part at the beginning where, they're starting out down the trail in Montana, I think, and instantly they run across the obnoxious, loud tourists.
Yeah.
for the first mile or two, and he's like, "Badger," and it's a marmot or something, and I
Yes.
just laughed out loud because I have, experienced that where you're trying to enjoy the hike and get to the nature, and you got all these obnoxious people that are just there for the selfies or whatever, and don't know what's going on. So personally, I liked that, and I also enjoyed the fact that Texas got its own chapter about not just how like much he loved Austin, but how terrible Greg Abbott is in many parts of the state. And I was like, thank you for pointing that out because you're right.
Yeah, I was interested to see where he was going because like literally right before that, I was just like, oh well, let's see what he says about Texas. But you're right. Yes, he did say that he loves Austin and the parks that are here. He
Mhm.
loved going to them as well and everything. So
And
uh,
I connect with like the things he liked about Austin and Big Bend and things like that on a personal level. So
mhm.
that was nice because Texas and I have kind of a love-hate relationship right now, but I those are some of the things I do love about the state, and I kind of appreciate that someone else, completely unconnected with me also sees that. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, Chris, anything in particular stand out that you really liked or?
I like the way he talked about his time in Northern England, just being on that farm and just how much he loved it. I also thought it was hilarious the way he was talking about his siblings, about when they went for Thanksgiving and there was this tension and he had no clue, and then found out like 2 weeks later that they were both pissed off at each other for very different reasons.
Hmm.
Oh, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds really familiar. That sounds like my family.
And
Um,
he's like, yeah, I totally dealt with it by not talking about it at all and asking someone else.
yeah,
He's
Yeah.
like so
like that's
passive aggressive.
exactly what happens. You don't deal with it, you pipe it all in, and you're just like, except that's not a good way to deal with things. It's just nice to know that other families do that. Um,
Well, that was one of those times that he pointed out, like, and he does say, he does come out and say several times, like he said before, that, he's like, I know I'm very privileged. I know we're in a very, we're in a position that a lot of people aren't in. We didn't. It's not like we were dying, not being able to go to work and stuff. But that the whole point of the tension was the fact that he just kind of made the assumption that because COVID testing was so readily available where he was at that was the case with the rest of his family, and they're just like, no,
Yeah.
like we cannot find them, we cannot get them, so you're kind of insisting is like, cool, so you're just saying we're poor, we can't show up, and it's like, no, that's not what I was saying.
right. So
Yeah,
let me
but
tell you,
we don't have any problems with our family like that, right? There's no miscommunication.
never. Uh, so I enjoyed that. You can tell that he does love being in nature. Like that's where he feels most like himself and where he finds his peace, and that's sort of his happy place. And I like listening to that. It did. Um, the political stuff was cool. I knew he had like echoes of Ron Swanson with the woodworking and the canoeing and being an outdoors man, but I also knew he wasn't a libertarian. So listening to
Hmm.
it's the first time I've heard him outright say his political views. Um, I felt it now that we're talking about everything. It felt kind of like Sarah Wilson's book, this one Precious Life, one Wild Precious Life, and that with her book, it also kind of jumped all over the place too. And it was about her adventures, which were very grand and very wonderful to listen to, but it was like you're all over the place, and it kind of had like a weird flow to it that way. But yeah, it's not doom and gloom. That's also what I liked. He didn't say we're all screwed, which was
Right.
kind of nice. That was refreshing. Didn't up any novel suggestions other than go vote and start thinking about things a little differently. It's like, yeah, well, we all know that. So um, I didn't expect Nick Offerman to like change the world or anything like that with the book. I thought it was, it's just a different perspective from somebody that maybe you would think didn't give a shit based on his
Yeah.
what he does for a living and where he lives. And
And I think some of what he said was kind of just a good reminder about how to be a decent human and member of society. Like, yeah, it was a little preachy at times, but also, he points out like wearing a mask is like the least like the most giving thing you can do, and and it's like the very minimum you can do to help your fellow man, and just like I don't remember, does he call it like the big economy or something, like doing things for the greater good, rather than money. He says because money all the time, because that's the motivation for so many things in America and the world is like, well, screw the environment and the people living there and whatever, whoever gets hurt in the way because money. And I think in a lot of ways, like, we're kind of keyed into a lot of these messages anyway, so we all kind of, I think and agree with what he says, but there might be people out there who don't think that way. So maybe some of this was a good reminder, good way to just like get them thinking about certain things, maybe even if, in the end they're not. I kind of hope that the libertarian Ron Swanson's out there that expected the Ron Swanson messaging, listen to it and go, oh, or they might just stop listening because they get so disgusted and throw the book across the room or whatever. But
yeah,
my hope is that he got through to somebody at least.
And he very well might have. I mean, he is he's not like Tom Cruise, but he's got notoriety, and same with his wife, and she has a very pretty voice, by the way.
Oh yeah, it was nice.
At the end, is that Megan? And then he said it was, and I listened to the whole thing.
If you listen to the book, guys, you get to hear Megan Mullally sing. She has a band too, so
she does.
Never heard it.
But played in their last book, but I didn't think that kind of. I didn't think anyway. I think it's not a doom and gloom climate. It's not a gloom and doom environmental book. So if you need something that's got some humor in it and a little bit, it takes you on some adventures, and you got a little bit of escapism there while learning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that he said that I most liked, I almost feel like this book should have been broken into two. Like it should have been, like I don't even know if he should really write an entire book on his political views. Like I said, it was just I think that was my problem with it is, I got the environmental stuff, which I'm fine with, I'm cool with, and everything, and then like I'm still cool with his political ideas. They just ram together so hard, and I'm just like, I was trying to find why is it this way, and he specifically says one thing that I actually really, really liked, and I think it's, me just guessing here, this is why he was able to put the two things together, why he thought they went together so well. When he talks about the explanation of what a real conservative is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm just like, okay, well, I see maybe that's why he's adding all this political stuff, because his explanation of being what a real conservative is still what I hold true to be what should be a real conservative. And the way he explains it, he's like, a conservative is someone who's like, you're killing this animal and you're not going to use every part of it. You're not going to use the meat and the hide and the antlers. You're not going to, you're just going to throw it away. That's wasteful. Why are you doing that? That's wrong. Why would you not want to keep the land, healthy and keep it going so we can keep reusing it? It is a resource that we can either destroy or we can keep going. And that ideology of that's what a conservative should be is the old idea of what a conservative would have been politically. It would have been, why are we spending all this money to do this? We need to be conserving money. This is a precious commodity that we need to be holding on to. We don't need to be just frivolously throwing money away and collecting money and raising taxes and stuff. Of course, that's gone way out the window. But like I said, I liked that explanation. And that's where I kind of thought, well, maybe that's where he's thinking these two things kind of really go together. Like I said, that's just my guess. But I really liked his definition of what a real conservative is, and not the BS people running around right now, flaunting all their, idiotic ideas about, women's rights and, sexuality and all this other stuff. So like, yeah, no, that's not really it. You should not be going to Walmart, and you should be, farming in your backyard, dude. If you want to call yourself conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So Jen I thought Jen froze for a second there. I think she did. She gone? Oh no, we may have lost Jen.
Well, right. No, totally lost her. I can't even hear her.
Yeah.
No, it dropped me. Like the call completely dropped.
Okay, well we can hear you now. So
the app closed for no reason.
No.
Okay. Well,
Can you
You
see
were
me?
frozen.
I can't see myself, so.
Okay, well, right now we don't see you. It's just your avatar, so it's okay. But you were frozen in a pose like you were thinking about something, and I was like, man, is
Yes.
she really taking in everything I'm saying?
I was gonna say something, and then the app just literally closed, so you
Just
can
closed on
edit
you.
all
Okay.
this out. I actually think my like virus protector is blocking my video, and I don't know how to, because I closed it before I read it. I don't know how to go in and fix that.
Well, that's fine. We'll keep going from where we are. So.
I was just gonna, like, in response to what you were just saying about how he connected the two things or whatever, the politics and the environmental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he's doing is indicative of a larger trend in the environmental movement of intersectionality and the fact that environmental issues are not distinct from other political issues, and especially issues of race and class and gender and things like that. So I kind of appreciate that he brought that in, because you can't anymore really talk about one without including the others, because they're all connected. Environmental justice is, about how these environmental issues affect race and vice versa. So I guess that's kind of my perspective on how it works. And I think coming from someone like him, it might be, more what better received or well received by certain parts of the population, maybe, hopefully. So
That makes sense, and I totally I get that. So maybe even it's more of just an advertising situation. Maybe it like we kind of said, it needs to maybe the subtext for the needs to be, hey, I'm going to be talking about my ideas for nature and stuff while I'm going on a walk, and maybe some political things here and there. Just throwing,
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
Yeah, maybe just rambling thoughts of Nick Offerman on a hike.
there you go. That may actually be better, because then it would literally be random stuff. Be like, all right, cool. So you
And
can
I
talk
think
about your
that,
dogs
yeah,
and stuff too.
I think Ray would have probably read it because that's where he got stuck. He's just like, "Ugh, can't listen.
So, a pastoral observations of one ignorant American who loves to walk outside. So
Mhm.
yeah, going back to your point about using nice big words there. Yeah.
I feel like a guy's rambling thoughts while walking in the woods would have been way more direct,
Maybe.
more. American has like a fifth grade reading level. So, where was
Yeah, it was published in October. So yeah, it is very up to date. So some of the stuff that he brings up is like, oh wow, yeah, that seems like that just happened. I mean, no, technically it's almost been a year now, but still, it's like, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that it was his newest book and how recently it had been released. So
I didn't
uh,
know
yeah, so some of the political stuff that he was bringing up, I was just like, whoa, that's recent.
just
But
happened.
yeah. Was there anything else anyone wanted to add? Anything else you enjoyed, disliked, um, wish would have been in there?
I just thought, based on this book and the other book, like his the way he approaches things and the way he talks about his interactions with just random strangers, I'm just like, man, he's just so down to earth, like he has a woodworking shop and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's not like your typical Hollywood high maintenance. I need, like, his rider was, I need, you know, something to eat and 2 beers or something after a show. And he didn't even
Yeah,
get the beers half the time. So I thought that was, just kind of cool how that came across without him having to say it. It was just like, yeah, if you ran into this guy on the trail, he'd be happy to, chat with you. But I will say I saw his stand up once, and he talked about when people approached him for pictures and they wanted to just take a picture of him. Like, he went on a rant about that, and he talks about that in the book. So I thought that was kind of funny, because if you ever meet Nick Offerman in person and want a picture, he will oblige only if you're in the picture. Don't try to take a picture of him by himself, because that's creepy and weird.
yeah. I totally understand that point
Yeah.
as well. Like, especially, I mean, because the selfie has become so much, so ingrained in our,
Mhm.
who we are and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is totally off topic, but maybe that was something that's like I could see that being like back in the 80s, like, oh, look at so and so, and you get a picture of it, and
Yeah.
now
Why would
that
you not
that
want a
just
picture with him?
Yeah, that just sounds weird. Like, why would you not go up to that person and be like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And like, because if you said, "Can I get a picture of you?" they'd be like, okay, weird person." Like,
Like
yeah,
animal.
yeah. So,
And I also thought it was funny that the guy that ran into him on the trail was just like, "Oh, hey, Nick," without even seeing him first. He just heard his voice
yeah,
because he was recording something.
yes.
And was he wearing a mask on the trail? I don't know. That
I don't
seems a
think
little
so.
overboard. I wasn't even wearing masks outside during the peak of it, just because I'm outdoors and there's nobody around. But
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I'd see some of these poor kids walking back and forth from school with their mask on. I just want to roll down the window and be like, "You can take it off now. It's super hot outside. Don't kill yourself.
I know.
Like, please take care. I mean, you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of other people. Thank you for that, but you're good."
I
So, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to throw. Oh, I did. It's not like I'm not like done, and I don't think I won't read anything else by him. In fact, I kind of want to look through the rest of the books that he's done, and I want
Mhm.
to see if he's done one on his woodworking shop because I would probably find that fascinating.
I think he did one about
Yeah.
canoe or something like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
think that one has a lot to do with building his own stuff with wood.
yeah,
Using.
a canoe is a huge investment in time and energy and stuff. One of his friends, I follow him, Jimmy DeResta, on YouTube. He references the canoe that he made all the time, and he even references. I think he said Nick offered. He's like, yeah, I think when Nick decided he was going to do one, he's like, well, I guess I got to do one now too. So, it's kind of like building a lightsaber for a Jedi, like for a woodworker. That's like, all right, well, I've built a canoe, so I'm in the club now. So,
The ultimate, yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah, like I said, I have his other books in paperback, and they looked funny. I just never got around to reading them. But I would have guessed they're not as political, just because I think he wrote those earlier in his career and it was like more exploratory and hobbyish. But
yeah,
could be
exactly.
wrong.
So, well, if he also wrote them earlier, I mean, shit may not have gone down as bad.
Right. Free Trump and all that, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about the United States existential crisis, and it was like, when was the last time you would say, as a nation, we were like happy? And it was like, well, it's definitely got to be like, you could argue before 2016, you could argue before 2001, like.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, even you just kind of look at it and you're like, well, what was in the news? And it was like, oh, so and so's getting divorced. And it was like, oh, really? That was the worst thing to deal with, huh? Man, we were stupid. So,
I know.
anyway, well, that is our discussion for Where the Deer and the Antelope Play. Our next book coming up next month, is my pick. Um, I don't expect to see either one of you on here for that. And that was not necessarily on purpose. So our next book is called Infinite by Jeremy Robinson. The reason I picked it is because I was talking about it with Sean a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, I've read some of his other books, but I don't think I've read that one." I was just like, "So are his books like crazy, like just like all over the place?" And he's like, "No, not really." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, then maybe you need to read this one." And I talked Ray into reading it, and Ray was like, I think the text message I got was just like, "What? What the what? Like, what did I just read?" And that's why I picked it, because I need other people to discuss this with. Hey, there's Ray right there. I need other people to discuss this with, so that's why I picked it. Anyway, so that's next month. Next month's book is Infinite. There's a lot of pretty graphic violence in it, so that's why Chris, I'm sure, is ducking out of that one, and I'm sure Jen will be back to your studies. So after that is Half Share by Nathan Lowell, and then Ravenwood by Nathan Lowell, which is that still going to be the case, Ray, or are you changing your mind?
You changing your mind?
I need to discuss it further.
Okay, so we've at least got our next two books, Infinite and Half Share. So let's discuss what we've been reading. Would anyone like to go first?
Sure.
All right, what else have you been reading, Chris?
So last night I just finished a book called The School of Mirrors by, it's either Eva or Eva, I don't know. And this is a Polish last name that I am about to butcher. I'm sorry. Stachniak.
Okay.
Stachniak.
Sounds right.
She is Polish, but she lives in Canada now with her husband. But it is that
An echo.
Echo?
Yeah.
What is going on with Jennifer's video? That is the
I'm trying to
weirdest.
change my camera. I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to get stuck.
Oh, if
I unplugged
you
it and
listen to
replugged
the
it, and it
audio,
didn't.
you probably should go watch the video. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying, Chris.
Okay, so this book takes place in 18th century France around the reign of King Louis XV. I did a massive project in college on Louis XIV, so kind of a little bit obsessed with Versailles in France. And this is leading up, so it starts there. There had been rumors, this is true, it's historical fiction, so there's rumors that Louis XV, because he's king and can do whatever the hell he wants, decided in and around the middle of his reign, he's about 45, that he had a penchant for young teenage girls. And there would be these girls who were kind of like, their families were down on their luck, they needed money. And this one girl named Veronique, basically her mother sold her to this house called Deer Park. And what these girls were told is that they were going to be meeting with a Polish count, because the queen at the time, his wife was Polish. So that's how they got around that whole thing. And it was in secret. And Veronique played her part. The way that she described the first time she had sex was just like these kind of, anyways, it was kind of hilarious. But then she got pregnant. And then sent away. Baby was taken from her. She went nuts. And then they do it from the point of view of the daughter. Only the daughter doesn't know who she is, who her dad is, none of that. And then it leads up to the French Revolution, when King Louis XVI gets executed, and then Marie Antoinette. So it's really, really interesting historical fiction. The French Revolution was bonkers. They even changed their calendars, the way they did time. Like, instead of 60 minutes in an hour, it was 100 minutes in an hour. They had different months, like days of the month, like month names. They got completely rid of the Gregorian calendar. Oh yeah, it was, and I didn't know any of that. So I was reading, so I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that either.
Yeah, so it's really good. Not normally something I would read, but it said Versailles on it, so I'm like, I have to read it now. Really good. So I'm reading that, and then I'm reading The Thief Lord now by, I can't remember her name, and I got it at the Restore for $1. So that's what I'm reading after I finish that.
Nice. Ray, what have you been reading?
Reading, babe.
I'm going to jump in because I didn't join the show, but, I'm going to jump in anyway because I Columbus Day.
You did?
You read Columbus Day?
I don't know what that means.
Okay,
Eugene does.
I do. Should I jump in now?
Sure.
All right. So, our friend Sean, I guess, on a whim or whatever, kind of looked it up. If in the fourth Bobaverse book, there's a group of Bobs, and they are known as Skippies. And like the rest of us, he had no clue. Well, what is this reference? I mean, almost everything in the book is a reference to something else. What is this reference? Why are these guys known as Skippies? So we looked it up, and it turns out it's because of this book series called Expeditionary Force. And there's 13 books with the 14th one on the way. And so he's like, well, I'll give this a read. And he literally reports in and is like, yeah, it's about, oh, there she is. It's about, and it's stuck again. That's hilarious. I'm going to take a picture of that, and that's going to be judgmental, Jennifer.
It's just bad. The video's bad on this one.
Okay, at least you're moving now. So, anyway, so in this book series, it's about aliens invading and humans going out and fighting with aliens and this, that, and the other. And there's this essentially a beer can that's all silver, and it's a elder AI from this race that had like ascended, like they were so advanced and everything else and lived millions of years ago, and they left some technology, and he's one of them. And he's like, well, what do I call you? And he's like, call me like, the greatest thing you've ever met. I'm the smartest thing you will ever meet, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm gonna call you Skippy. So, and it sticks. And once you like up to 6 to 8 hours into this book, you're like, this is okay. And then when you make Skippy, it just kind of takes off. And I am I just finished book 6, and there's a 3.5 book in there as well. So I'm about 7 books in. I'm chomping at the bit to get more credits because I had a stash of credits and I just ripped through these books.
There's like 14 books.
Yeah, so I'm about halfway through. And oh my god, they're like I said, it is interesting. The story that they're telling is interesting. The characters that are telling are interesting, but you're there for Skippy's interaction with the captain. That's why you're there, and it's fantastic. It's so oh my god, it's so funny. I have literally laughed out loud multiple times listening to this book.
It's
And
a
like
long
I
time to have to go through the book to get to the good part.
well, you would think so, but then the rest of the books are just they keep going. And honestly, it's not like it was boring up to that point. It just wasn't anything new. It was like, okay, so one alien race invaded us, and turns out they're really kind of not the bad guys, and the people who we thought were the good guys are actually the bad guys, and it's kind of some back and forth, and then like I said, once Skippy comes in, it's just like, I mean, shit's really like it's tense. There's a lot of stakes, but like because he talks down everyone he calls all humans monkeys. Like he's just like, and of course some people might not like being called a monkey, and he's like, well, fine, then you're like algae. Like, is that better? Do you want me to call you algae instead? So
You might be an amoeba.
yeah, you might be an amoeba. You might have the intellect of an amoeba, but the way he talks down to people, oh my god! Like he trash talks his buddy who's the captain. His buddy trash talks him back and forth or whatever. But like there's this one part later on in the book series we get introduced to this guy. I can't even remember the guy's name because I just know him by the nickname. He's just like, look, he looks like Count Chocula. That's what I'm calling him. And like like during like while all this stuff's going on, they could be in the middle of this battle and like he'll come on the screen to tell everyone to do something, and he replaces the video of him as a monkey or Count Chocula talking, and you're just like, this is the wrong time. Don't do this. This is funny as hell, but you can't do this right now. We're all about to die. So, oh my god, it's so good, and that's all I've been reading. Like I said, I'm like 6 or 7 books in, and I cannot wait for more credits. So, anywho's it, Jen? Have you been reading anything else?
Well, other than a shit ton of articles for school,
Mm-hmm.
I have been I actually did read a book called, can't see it, No Friend But the Mountain by Behrooz Boochani. And it's a book by a Kurdish journalist who fled to Australia to seek asylum back in like 2014. And he was illegally detained and imprisoned for 5 years on Manus Island in Papua New Guinea, and it talks about his experience. He wrote it from prison. He like typed it out on WhatsApp and texted it to his translators, and they compiled it into this book. And it's really interesting and like insightful. It's really good. It is very sad, obviously, because he's talking about being illegally detained with hundreds of other people. But it's like a mixture of poetry that he writes and his experiences and like the people in the prison and what they're going through, and kind of the he calls it Manus prison theory, and just like the whole structure, the power structure behind imprisonment and incarceration in general. And it's an interesting book. I had to read an excerpt of it in class, and that turned me on to this. And so yeah, it was just I think it's something everyone should read, just to be aware of like this shit's happening in the world, in countries like Australia and the United States, and we're like just turning a blind eye to it. They're illegally imprisoning people. They're spending millions of dollars to imprison people when the people could be like contributing to the economy and making the country money, but we're putting them in prison and spending money on them instead. So yeah, very shocking, but
Yeah.
So a light read.
yeah, read it in public. You won't cry or anything. But no, yeah.
Nice, easy read.
That's my read. Huh?
That's
Nice, easy read.
Yeah.
Just,
No,
yeah.
Oh, and then before that, since it's been a while since I've been on, I read Climate Justice by Mary Robinson, who is the former president of Ireland, and it's a very quick read. It's like 120 pages, and it's just collections of stories of mostly women, some men, doing climate activist work around the world, and just like people she's interacted with, because she's a big climate activist and she's part of the elders, the Council of the Elders, and she's like working with the UN on climate justice. So that was a happy read. It was, there's obviously sadder parts of it because it's about climate change, but she's shining a light on people doing good work. So
Cool.
Good deal. Well, that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on Google, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever it is you listen to the show. You can also watch us on YouTube as well. You can find us at Epically Geeky, where you can find the rest of our shows, including the Epically Geeky Show, Creatively Geeky, and Sustainably Geeky. You can find us on all of the social networks as well at Epically Geeky. Where can we find you online, Jen?
you can find me sometimes here and always on Sustainably Geeky, and on Instagram and Twitter at Het's Gonna Be Me.
Chris?
You can find me here and Epically Geeky and Creatively Geeky and Sustainably Geeky. I'm everywhere. I'm very sorry if you are tired of this face and this voice.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Oh, go away. And on Instagram at Moody Midlife.
Ray?
No, you just got here. You need
That's why I was off.
You can't sit with us.
I was off
Aww.
screen. The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram, if I'm
Yeah.
allowed.
Oh.
Ooh.
Pity
And as
follower.
always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone in the site, have a good night.